Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm just going to give it a minute or two as everyone gets settled in. I really appreciate you joining today, but just going to give it a moment or two. Okay. As you're all joining, and we're letting more folks jump into the webinar, I would love to get to know where you're all calling in from. If you could open up this QR code, I really like to get to know the audience, and then we can have a really great conversation today. Feel free to use that QR code and let me know where you're calling in from. Awesome, local. Philly, nice. India, Palm Beach. I'm a little jealous of all the warm weather places today. It's cold and rainy here in DC. California, San Diego. Oh, yes. Italy, yes. I'm very, very jealous of the warmer weathers. Awesome. We have a really great group coming out today. Tokyo. Oh my goodness. Thank you for staying up so late in your day. Oh, this is awesome. Brooklyn, we love to see the East Coast represented. This is wonderful. Okay. It looks like everyone is starting to taper out and log on. I hope you're ready for a really great conversation. And I appreciate, before I get started, just that you're taking the time to invest in yourself. I recognize that this is an extremely busy time of year with all of our work schedules and family obligations. So to carve out an hour to invest in yourself and to prepare your application component, I really appreciate you taking this time to join me. So who am I? I'm going to jump back to my last screen. I am Madison Shields. I am the Associate Director here on the admissions team. So I've been on the team for going on about 4 years. Goes by quick. And I'm very excited to share today about application tips and tricks, how you can best prepare a complete and competitive application. A few housekeeping, items that I would love to share before we dive into some really great content. So this is going to be about our conversation on how to prepare your application. I recognize that our round 2 application is just around the corner, early January on January 6th. So I'm going to be gearing a lot of these conversations and tips on how to help you prepare a complete and competitive application. With that said, I'm going to give you some great resources at the end on how to keep and stay in touch with our team to help you navigate any other additional questions you might have coming out of this particular conversation today. I ask that if you have any questions, please put that in the Q&A box. It's going to help me make sure that I get to as many questions as possible, and it'll help me kind of navigate from there. I'm going to pause at different points of this conversation because I recognize that a lot of questions will probably pop up in your head as we go along. So feel free to put those questions in the Q&A box as it comes, and then we'll address them in the relevant parts of the conversation. Okay. And then the next big thing I would like to remind everybody, so as an attendee today, I'm really thrilled to share that you will receive an application fee reduction code as at the end as you complete this full webinar. So I would recommend keeping an eye out on the email that you have inputted into our system in the next day or so, and you will receive a survey with links and instructions on how to receive that code. So just want to say that at the start, and I'll remind you as we go about this conversation. Okay, so those are the big 2 housekeeping items. All right, we'd love to see how global our community is for sure. Okay. And I would also love today to understand which MBA program you're considering. It's okay if you're not 100% sure as of right now, or if you're fully committed, would love to see that as well. I like to take this moment to say that, as we go through this application workshop, you'll see that the application components for all 3 programs are similar and the same. I'll point out maybe 1 or 2 of the nuances, but they are all still the same nuts and bolts of this conversation. I also like to take this moment before we kind of keep diving into the agenda is that, if you're still between the two, maybe 2 different program formats, and you are trying to gather more information on what is actually going to be the best fit for your professional journey and just your personal life fit. So say you're considering the full-time and flex online and still between the 2, my recommendation is you can apply to both programs or all 3 programs at the same time. I'm going to pause there with the caveat that is for each application that you submit, you have to have a unique email. So if that is something that you're considering and want to maybe explore a little bit more, feel free to save those questions and we can chat at the end. But I always like to remind students that if you're applying to multiple programs for Georgetown, please try to apply in the same round. It puts you in the best success to make that informed decision. And then two, just know that you'll have to have separate emails for two different accounts. Okay, great. Well, this is great. Okay, so we're all considering the full-time program. Wonderful. Okay. So to provide you with a little bit of information on how the admissions committee approaches the formal application components, we really do take a holistic approach. I always like to remind students and applicants that we are humans behind the screen, and we are going in with the best intentions to see how are you going to bring the strengths to our program. We're looking for really what makes you you and how that fits really well into our very diverse and collaborative community. So please know that we are humans and that there are many different aspects that go into our holistic approach. We're going to be diving into more of the quantitative and qualitative aspects. So we'll first start with the quantitative aspects, but I always like to, just really emphasize that it is not one necessarily point that makes or breaks a decision. It is a very robust and holistic review process. Many eyes go on your application, and we recognize that it takes a lot of hard work to submit a complete and competitive application. And so there really is a strong due diligence on the admissions committee and to have multiple eyes and to really dive into all the nuances in your application. Okay, so on the next slide, we're going to be starting off with this quantitative aspect of your application components. We're going to start off with the heavy hitters of the uh, academic background. So in the quantitative aspect, you have your academic background, your test scores, and your years of work experience. So when you think about your academic background, we do provide the averages, the middle range for the more formal GPAs on our website. So if you haven't had a chance to check out our class profiles, highly encourage you to check out those class profiles for those formal stats and seeing how you can use these as benchmarks of your own assessment. I always like to remind students and applicants that whether you're coming from an institution that is domestic or international, our admissions committee is really equipped and has been well trained on how to evaluate the different GPA scales and how that differentiates between the different programs, as well as understanding the nuances behind each of the different maybe majors of studies and going into the classes you've taken. So from here, I want to take a quick little pause and go to my next slide because this is a really good reminder on the nuances that go into uploading your application. So in the academic part of your application, we're going to ask for all your academic transcripts. So this includes if you are a student who has studied abroad at any point, or maybe you have transferred from different institutions. That is normal. Again, we are humans and we understand that there are some really great opportunities out there, as well as maybe potentially your degree came from a dual degree program from two different schools. So we need every single transcript that is potentially a part of your academic record. And with those academic transcripts, we also need those grade scales. So I have a QR code right here. This is also accessible on our application components page of our website, but I wanted to highlight real quickly, jumping into the drive of our McDonough grade scale guide of where can you find your grade scale on your institution's website. We really just need a screenshot, and so I've taken a few different screenshots. So this is looking at maybe Duke's transcripts or Clemson's undergraduate transcripts and looking at the grade scales. So this you can see is that we really need to know the nuts and bolts of how your previous institutions have broken down what they qualify as an A, maybe a B. Does it have a different GPA scale? Is it out of 10 versus 4, or is it out of 4.3, out of 4? So we really need to know that screenshot. It's important too, as you're taking these screenshots for those grade scales, that you capture the institution at the top. Sometimes it might get caught off when you're doing this screenshot, as well as making sure that you've captured all the different components. Sometimes the grade scales might be 2 pages or 1 page, depending on your institution. So this grade scale guide is a really good way to ensure that we go through a couple different scenarios. So keep that as a reference. I really take the time to pause here to really emphasize this because um, this is maybe an overlooked aspect of uploading your academic transcripts and all the requirements that go into this section. But it is absolutely necessary to ensure that your application component, your application itself, proceeds and is processed in our auditing process on a timely fashion. So sometimes students, they get through all the transcripts, that's great, but then overlook the grade scale. But your application really needs this to be deemed complete before it can keep going through the next phases of the application review process from the committee. So please keep this in mind as well. And then I would also like to just remind everybody that by uploading your transcripts, so all the different transcripts with the actual grades, so please ensure that if you've studied abroad or had transfer credits, we do need the actual transcripts that show the letter grade or the points that were received, not just a passing or an overview of the classes with that these were deemed transferable. So we really do need all those nuance breakdowns. The admissions committee also recognizes that, your previous academic scores are not something that can be adjusted, right? You've probably have navigated a lot of different life phases as you went through either a previous master's or a previous undergrad institution. And so, we do post those ranges of scores as a benchmark, but there are absolutely other ways to also stand out in understanding your academic preparedness and readiness for the rigor of our program. I think too it's nice to know that there is an optional essay section, and so I encourage you if there are any trends in your transcripts. So say you might have had a couple of semesters that were a little bit below more of your below, I would say, your typical performance, please indicate that on the optional essay. It's always great to be able to share in your own words, maybe something that you were balancing, or maybe highlight another strength in area that offsets or provides a little bit more context as to what was going on. We really, encourage you to share what you're comfortable with, but being able to provide those insights in your own words allows the admissions committee to not have so many follow-up questions that we might need some more evidence of your academic readiness. Okay, I'm going to keep going to my next part, and then I'll pause for more questions. So I really appreciate all these questions that are coming in, and we're going to keep on going so we can address these quantitative questions at the end of the section. Okay, so the next part of the quantitative section is your test scores. Here at Georgetown, and I hope you've probably have heard from other institutions, is that we really encourage you to take the test that you're going to rock. So whether that's the executive assessment, the GMAT, or the GRE, we really encourage you to take the test that and are confident to rock the highest scores. So with that said, again, we also post the middle ranges of our test scores. This really gives you an overview of the incoming classes performance on the test scores. I think it's no better time to be a test taker actually in this industry, because the GMAT and GRE have really gone through the past year and a half some really good revamps that puts the test taker in the position to really succeed. So if you're kind of new to those nuances, just know that they have gone through some different evaluations that have adjusted how they the different sections timings and the questions that are asked, as well as the different grading scales. Please know if you're proceeding to take the GMAT, the new version of the GMAT, which is now just the regular GMAT, or if you have different GMAT or GRE variations of what they've now have had 2 different variations for the past couple of years, please know the admissions committee here at Georgetown is very much well equipped to be able to handle and evaluate those different school reports. We do rely on the GMAT and GRE's published grading scales. So that is definitely where we reference the nuances. And we also require the applicants, so you, to let us know which versions of the test. So we really do go into those nuanced details. Um, my recommendation too is, take a test one or two times. We really see that it takes one or two times for students to see which test is the best fit for them, and also maybe potentially show areas of progress. I would like to, so as we go through that, so after you've taken the test maybe once or two times, um, as you submit your application, this is really important. So please note this. Um, for both your test score report as well as all those academic requirements, we're only asking at this point of your application for unofficial reports. However, the GMAT is a little bit tricky because if you're going to go and take a screenshot of your score report, you need to ensure that your name, your first and last name, as well as the test date is included with all the different the test sections and test score reports. So when you're pulling up the GMAT or GRE dashboard, but really this goes into the GMAT dashboard, you might just automatically go in and take a quick little screenshot. The trick is to please actually go to the display section where it says personal information, and there's a little drop down arrow. And then so you can see your personal information on top of your score reports. This is really critical to know that those score reports match with your identity. And this may actually, if you do not capture your name and test date on your score report, your unofficial score report, that may slow down processing. So make sure that's noted as you go through and submit your application. Okay. And the last section of the quantitative experience is your resume. So we really want to ensure that your career progression and your leadership experience is really robust and can provide a lot of really quality conversations to the classroom. Our typical MBA students, whether you're considering any three of our programs, are really ranging between that 2 to about 9 to 10 years of work experience. The average is about 5 years, but I would say it's that range of 2 to 10 years, which is pretty common. Within your resume, I try to encourage you that you keep your resume to one page. It's definitely going to set you up for more success too as you get later into your MBA programs where you start to really build out a business resume. So please try to highlight everything within one page. However, the system won't kick you out if you submit something that's two. We encourage one page because we really want to ensure that we're seeing, any career progressions, any change in leadership responsibilities, some of those more measurable impacts that you might have had in those big projects that you're really are trying to highlight in your resume, and that what has that brought to your experience as a professional. Okay. So that is going to lead us to our qualitative section. I see a lot of questions that have come in for the quant part of our assessment. So I want to just address these as we go along so they're not lost as we keep going into the continued part of our assessment. So thank you also for everyone who's been putting this in. So I do have one question about a test score that might be about on average or maybe slightly below average, and how does that play into the holistic review process? So like I said at the beginning, there are many aspects that go into the holistic review part, right? So this is just looking at the quantitative part. We will also be looking at how, potentially how STEM focused was your undergrad major. Did you have, really strong performance in maybe a business related course, such as like a stats or a finance, and how that might be able to balance out with a test score. We also look at, the number of times you've taken a test and if you've shown any progression in any of the sections. So we look at, those patterns there. So it's not just taking one test in its own light, but we're looking at the larger score report that you've been sharing with us. We also look at, the quality of work and quantity of work that you're bringing in. Have you taken on a lot of job responsibilities related to managing finances, or have you taken a lot of, you know, increased responsibilities in managing, the execution of a business strategy? So there's a couple different areas that can go into understanding your uh, readiness for the academic program. Um, with that said, this is not required, but some things that you might have probably have been hearing from current students or talking with some admissions advisors. But ultimately, we want to ensure that you're prepared for the classroom, and so any sort of additional MBA math quantitative prep is always helpful and just beneficial for you once you get into a classroom. If you do not have any sort of more of that STEM or business quantitative background. So there's a plethora of resources out there, and you're more than welcome to research those. We do not necessarily have a preference on any of them, but ultimately try to encourage you that you do a quantitative math prep course or certificate that prepares you ultimately for the classroom, because that's what you're here for, and you want to be sure that you're ready. Great. Um, okay, so I do have a really good question about unofficial transcripts um, that are from international institutions and whether that their 3-year degree can qualify as a 4-year degree. So I recommend going on to our website, looking at those requirements, but essentially we just need your WES translation and just making sure that that is approved by the World Education Service. The S is a service, is deemed, acceptable. But please know that our admissions committee, especially here at Georgetown, which has such a globally diverse student population, that we have seen transcripts from all sorts of institutions from all over the world and have had those nuances and understanding of it. So please check out one first, our website and the WES standards, and then two, if you have any more specific questions to your personal case, feel free to reach out to our main inbox and we can help you with some of those nuances. Wonderful. And then I am seeing a few different questions about our unofficial transcripts not having a grade scale. So in order to find the grade scale, you'll likely have to go into your institution's academic booklet or some sort of publication. Those grade scales are not usually on the transcripts. They're usually somewhere on the website or their academic curriculum compiled booklet. That's usually a PDF that might be on their website. So if you have any major, I would say, issues finding it on their website, reach out to the registrar, their registrar. They'll probably be able to give it to you pretty quickly. Great. These are, thank you so much for paying attention to all these details. Okay. Uh, Wonderful. And I do have one more question, that if the grade scale is attached to our transcript, if there's anything else that you need to do, as long as it has your institution's name on the grade scale, that should be good. So thanks for asking that. Okay. Um, this is a really good question that might apply to a couple of other people as well. Um, so someone who has completed a previous master's might not have a final GPA. They might have just provided, the institution may have just provided a general letter grade or really probably just a notification. So if that's the case, there's still usually there's still usually a grade notice in those academic curriculum pages. So again, reach out to your registrar, but they do have to post how they grade and what they deem a passing grade. And so while there might not be necessarily a point GPA, there still has to be some sort of pass fail breakdown and what that looks like. So reach out to your registrar, but we have seen that in the past as well. Great, 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 great. Okay. So there's one more question about the test waiver. Okay, so thank you for calling this out. I cannot believe that I did not actually dive into more of those nuances. So as an applicant, please know that we do provide a uniformed test waiver policy. So whether you're applying for any of our 3 programs, we have a test waiver policy posted on our website. If you are applying to the full-time MBA and you're hoping to be evaluated for a test waiver policy, you have to apply to that our Georgetown's test waiver policy prior to submitting your application. This requires that you go into our website and actually, let me see if I can drop it in the chat, um, and submit it to be reviewed, your transcripts and your work experience to be deemed if your work experience and academic background qualifies you for a test waiver. So please know that that you have to submit that form before submitting your application for the full time. If you are a flex in person or flex online applicant, the qualifications are still the same as the full-time test waiver policy. However, you can self-assess to see if you meet those requirements and then apply to your part-time application uh, with highlighting that you're applying for the test waiver. That's not to say that it's a guaranteed that you have met those requirements. That just means that you have self-assessed that you are choosing to say that you are applying with the test waiver and that you feel confident in your work experience, that your current work experience, as well as your academic background, that there's enough evidence. However, the admissions committee may come back and require more quant evidence, and you won't know that necessarily until after receiving your decision. So that's why we really encourage you to really be honest as you self-assess those criteria, and understand that you may be required for more quant evidence. So again, just to recap that, full-time, if you're considering and want to explore the test waiver, please know you have to apply for that review process and receive like a yes, you've received this confirmation from the admissions committee, or no, before you submit your application. And then the part-time applicants, please know that you can self-assess if you meet that test waiver, but know that it's not guaranteed, and the admissions committee may come back and require more quant evidence. So I also encourage you to know that this is to also highlight the ability of being able to prove your quantitative readiness and preparation in more, real world experience, knowing that that might be more applicable to your situation. Okay, wonderful. So thank you for highlighting that I did not go over the test waiver. I appreciate that. Okay, we are now jumping into, hold on, I think this is really great. One more question about, um, one more question about the deadline and the test scores and receiving them back in time. Thank you to this person who's asked. I recognize too that the holidays and this winter break period that we're coming up to is a really great time to take advantage of sitting down and taking a test. And so if that test score is not quite ready for the round two application deadline, we really encourage you to have all your application components at the deadline. So if that is the case, if everything else is prepared except for that test score, the test centers usually provide the scores in a pretty quick turnaround. So my recommendation is to reach out to an admissions advisor if that timing is just on the brink. But really the preference is to have all your application components in by the deadline, and that is absolutely really, really encouraged and necessary. So I would recommend reaching out to your advisor if it's like on the brink, but usually the test centers are pretty good at turning things around. Okay. So now going into our qualitative assessment. So this is where we're looking into more of the nuances of your letter of recommendation, your personal essays, and potentially an interview. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the recommendation because it kind of is a really great segue from our years of work experience and understanding the nuances of your quality of work experience. So from here, I always like to encourage that you you ask a recommender that has seen your career progression in a couple different facets, that has really been integral into your daily development, as well as been a larger maybe potential a viewer of your overall career arc. So with that said, it's really important that you ask a direct supervisor. So there's a couple nuances though that usually come up, is that, as a full-time applicant, you might not quite be ready to have that that serious conversation with your direct supervisor or your employer. And so potentially a previous supervisor that has served in a similar capacity would still be acceptable. I do really encourage, though, those students who are applying part-time, it is necessary to ask a direct supervisor to be your recommender. We really need to ensure that you have had those, and I would say those serious academic obligation conversations with your employer, knowing that this is a big next step in your career development, and also time management with your work obligations. So that's why, as a part-time student, it's serious that you have a direct supervisor be your recommender. And with your recommender, so there's a couple things I want to put on everyone's radar because we are coming up to that deadline. So one, as soon as you put your recommender's email into the application portal, you will that will trigger an automatic form that goes to their email. So you do not need to necessarily submit your full application before they get their form that they need to complete, but it's as soon as you put their email into the system and it gets automatically triggered. They do need to complete that automatic form that it comes from our team. It is necessary because that is how we fairly and consistently evaluate all letter of recommendations. So if there is a recommender that has completed the universal recommendation form, I'm blanking on the actual name, but the general academic recommendation form, they can share that with us as an additional attachment. However, they still need to complete our form. So I would just recommend having that conversation with your recommender so they understand that it is integral to not holding up your application processing. My other tip for this section is to provide a email for your recommender that is their personal email, not their work email. What happens and what we have consistently seen is different organizations, whether you're military or maybe working in the government, or potentially potentially a tech company with some really strong firewalls. Personal emails do not necessarily always send that required form to spam. So to avoid, recommenders' work email preventing preventing it from their firewalls or protection or some sort of like it just automatically gets sent to a spam and gets like stuck in the world of the digital world and doesn't actually get to their inbox. We really encourage you to add your recommender's personal email. It really helps them troubleshoot on our end, and it kind of expedites, I would say, any sort of like initial troubleshooting. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind. Additionally, it's always best and highly advised that you tell your recommender the deadline is a week prior to our deadline, because we really do need your recommendation as at the deadline, so by January 6th. So I always encourage students to give their recommender a different day that's a couple of days ahead of time so it gets in the system. And we all know, chatting with our recommender is precious to their time and it's always an honor. And so just giving them a little bit of that buffer will help ease your stress come application deadline period. The other recommendation or the other tip that I like to share at this point is that you share a little bit about what you're going to be talking about in your application with your recommender. So while they might be your direct supervisor or a close mentor that has, can speak very highly on your successes, it's always nice to provide them with a little bit of context of what you consider as your proudest professional accomplishments, or a little bit of context as what you're providing in your essays. So they can also complement the experiences that they've had with you in their recommender. So provide them a little bit of context and have that good conversation. Okay. So I think that's great on the recommendation side. Okay. So personal essays. At Georgetown, we provide you with 3 prompts for your written essay component. This is not meant to be a trick question. We do provide you with 3 prompts. Please pick one that speaks the most to you. So you only need one written essay that is from one of those prompts. Um, it is we do not have a preference. It is really based on what prompt speaks the most to your personal experience. Um, I always like to encourage applicants to, maybe have a conversation with a colleague or a close friend that has worked with them in a professional capacity to some point, um, to run past how you're going to approach this essay to see if this speaks the most authentically to your story. And so it's always good to have that self-reflection period, and writing about yourself can sometimes be an interesting new muscle to run and to build. So I think that's a great way to get started on that one written essay component. We also require for your application a video essay. And I know this video essay from conversations tends to bring up some initial stress on applicants, but that's not the intention. The intention is to give you the ability to share with the admissions committee a little bit more about yourself. This year, the prompt is what brings you joy, what has recently brought you joy, and it's really meant to be 1 minute. You can film this as many times as you would like. Please treat it, it does not need to be a high production and cut and a high, I would say, intensive editing process, but treat this as like a recorded Zoom video. You test it as many times as you want, as long as the audio is clear, the lighting is bright, and we can see you, and you're talking for the majority of it. That is what we're expecting. And so, please, this is something that the admissions committee always looks forward to, and I think is a really great way to complement a lot of the formal written pieces of your application. It's also a really great way. So this takes me into my next um, point, actually about the interview. So I'll come back to that. But to my last point about the video essay is that if you are invited to interview, only one member of the either the admissions committee or one of our admissions colleagues who are helping us conduct interviews really gets to meet you. And so the video essay is a way for the whole admissions committee to really get to know you. And so I think that's what the really great joy and benefit of the video essay is. Okay. So now going back to quickly the resume, I think that is complemented by the letter of recommendation that we talked about, and talking about the years of work experience, any career progressions. But in this particular component of the qualitative review process, I like to highlight that, again, we're humans, and we have experienced similar, world events, and how that may have impacted your professional journey. And so if there are any, employment gaps or breaks that you've taken to explore other professional pursuits, or maybe have navigated some unexpected economic situations, please just address that in the optional essay. There's also just a point, an essay part where you can address any gaps. But if there's additional context that you might want the admissions committee to have, please just address it in the optional essay. We understand and are just hoping to see how you continue to pursue any professional development during that period. Okay. From there, so say you've submitted, I'm going to go back to my next slide. So say you've submitted, right, your test scores, your transcripts, your resume, that written essay, the video, recommender, it's all ready to go, and you've submitted it by that deadline. It's all nicely packaged by January 6th, that deadline, that round 2 deadline. What happens from there is then the admissions committee goes through and does some really great audits to ensure that everything is there, and your application can proceed and be processed formally. And so the remaining component that is necessary for your application is potentially being invited to have an interview. So interviews are offered by invitation. Not all applicants receive this interview invite, but anybody who's been slated for admitted or who's been admitted has conducted an interview. And so you can be invited to interview anywhere up until the day before the decision notification or day of decision notification. It really is a wide window of being invited. And it is not an indication of where you stand in the evaluation process, but simply a matter from a work stream process. So I always like to encourage students to know that invitation can come at any point, and so please keep an eye out. Here at Georgetown, what that interview will look like, it is about a 30-minute conversation with a current MBA student, an alum, an admissions committee member, or administrative or staff here at Georgetown. The interview will be for about 20 to 25 minutes, and leave the remaining time of that 30 minutes for a Q&A session. We do offer virtual or in-person opportunities to interview, and so details will be sent what that looks like and how that can play out into your option to schedule if you are extended the invite to interview. Okay. I'm going to pause there to see if I have any really great general questions that I can address for the qualitative review process. I see we have some questions in the chat, and I just want to make sure that we get through these. Okay. I did just answer the question about the interview date. How long before the interview date will we receive the invite? Usually we give about sometimes we can give about a week or to a week and a half scheduling block out if you are extended the invite to interview, or it can be as quickly as 72 hours. It kind of depends. So if there's any conflicts, you can reach out to our team, but there's typically very strict scheduling that we need to follow to ensure that things are running on track and that your process is as planned. So you'll get that information if you receive that invite. Okay. Thanks for the question about the video essay. Can it be recorded in one go, or can the student pause and record and kind of pull into parts? So the video essay that you submit needs to be a consistent 60 seconds. How you record it and how you go about editing is totally up to you. But we really do encourage that when you submit that when that link comes through in that application, it is as close to 60 seconds. So, like 59 seconds or 601 is understandable, but anything less than, a significant period, like a significantly below 60 seconds or significantly above. So like anywhere between 60, like a minute and 10 seconds or plus is really not encouraged. So please keep it as close to 60 seconds as possible. And like I said, how you go about recording it and editing it and pulling it all together for that cohesive 60 seconds is totally up to you. But the intention is to make it, for all applicants of all abilities with videoing experience to be able to submit still a strong video link. Another thing that I don't think that I mentioned, and it just came to my mind, it's probably helpful for you all too, is that we encourage you to put a password on your video. So whether you're doing it to YouTube or Vimeo or another video sharing platform that is going to be accessible to the admissions committee, feel free, and we do encourage you to put a password protection on it. That's also a good way for you to kind of protect who's seeing it if you want. If you like to get some creative inspiration, I know there's some video essays out there on YouTube or Vimeo that you can search, but please know that those video essays do change in those prompts, so they might have different prompts. Keep that in mind. Okay. Okay. This is really great questions. I'm trying to see, trying to coordinate the next questions based on topics we've been talking about. Okay. The next question, so there's a couple different questions about the GMAT and jury, as well as the nuances of uploading it and when. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of questions about trying to get those scores in before the deadline and Yes, we only need the unofficial score report. So if your unofficial score report has your name, test date, and the score you got, you can submit that. If there's any questions or concerns during that auditing process, your application, your submitted application, our team will reach out for more clarity. But that's why we encourage you to make sure that all those nuances for your unofficial test scores are are paid attention to. So when you submit by the deadline, it can ensure that your processing is as streamlined as possible and efficient as possible. And you're not going back and forth with our team. Okay, great. Thank you. Uh, so I have a couple of other questions about the common letter of recommendation. Um, as I might have mentioned, and I might not have spent as much time on this. So your recommender needs to fill out our required form that we send them from our application. They can submit additional materials. So say they want to provide a more formal letter, or they want to also attach the common letter of rec. But what they'll need to do is definitely fill out our form in those questions, and they can attach something else, but that has to be our form has to be filled out for your application, one, to be deemed complete, and two, it helps us, the admissions committee, assess all recommendations equally. Great. Um, this is another question about test scores and at the time of being submitted. And so if they write in their optional essay that they're open to taking a test or a test another time based on what's being assessed, you will applicants will not find out if they need to provide additional quantitative evidence until after receiving their decision notification. In addition to that, if you do have intentions to take the test again, during the period of submitting your application before the decision release, we do have a part in our application where you can provide the date that you're planning to sit for the test again. There is a very, very brief window where it is a formalized process. If you are providing our team updated test scores from the time you have applied to the time you receive the decision report, you will receive an email notification of when the application update period is. It is a brief window, and you have to go through our formal updating process if you're providing us any sort of change in scores and what that looks like. So we do encourage you to make sure that everything's all buttoned up right before that that application deadline is January 6th. But in that period between January and March, if you have intentions to take that test again, there's a brief period where our team will reach out and let you know that this is now the time to share any other updates to be considered. Our team will reach out to you. And then again, it's going to be a formal form. So I just wanted to share some context of what that would look like. Okay. Okay. Uh, Thanks for this question on how someone could emphasize their quantitative readiness in the optional essay. So say you've provided all the different points, maybe you need to address a couple of different areas, and how do you really address that in the optional essay? The optional essay is meant to be brief, it's not meant to be extensive. So my recommendation is maybe highlight, the multiple attempts you probably have taken for the essay, or not the essay, for the test, the different tests you might have taken, any sort of progression in certain areas. Maybe you have taken additional quantitative certificates or math prep. That's also an option to upload in the optional essay area or as an additional attachment. So that could be something you could call out. But again, the additional quant prep is based on your self-assessment of being a competitive applicant when you submit it for that deadline. Okay. Okay, another good question about, will we need to submit a screenshot of our undergrad grading scale and a screenshot of our GRE test score report in the application? So yes, you need to submit a screenshot of one that any sort of previous institution or academic background that you have, undergrad, a different master's, you need to submit a screenshot of that undergrad grade scale. And in addition to that, you need to submit a screenshot of your GRE or your GMAT school report with your name and test date in that screenshot. So those are usually two pieces of the application that are usually quickly overlooked. So for those two sections, so I really encourage you to keep that on the back of your mind as you're preparing your components. So yes, both are necessary. At this point of the process, you're only asked for your unofficial transcripts and your unofficial score reports. But we do need those two additional, the unofficial, the grading scale, as well as the full screenshot of that score report to being deemed complete. And then after maybe someone's before matriculating to the program, you will ask for all the official reports to deem that that is beneficial, and we'll start to give you the process from there. But yes, at the time of applying, it's only unofficial. Okay, great. This is wonderful questions. So thank you. Thank you for asking such detailed questions. And I appreciate, all the hard work that's going to go into the next, the remaining couple of weeks to get this across the finish line. Okay, so I recognize that we're coming up just up on time. I want to make sure that I give you some really great announcements for the next couple of weeks. So I'll go through these quickly, but we do have our class profiles published on our website. So this is taking a quick look at our full-time class. So this is the students that came in this past fall. And you can see those benchmarks and see how you can stand out competitively. And then this is our Flex class profile. Again, really encourage you to check it out on the website. And this is our Flex MBA online. So I recognize that I've jumped through those pretty quickly. Happy to answer any more questions after this through email from the next link I'm going to share with you because I want to get to these couple of reminders. Okay. So like I said, the round 2 deadline is coming up on January 6th. We do have one more final deadline after that, and that is in April. So if you're joining today, I do recognize I geared a lot of these conversation to preparing our applicants for that January 6th deadline. We will have more application deadlines in the spring and preparing our applicants for potentially a round 3 deadline. I just know there's a lot of questions that come this time of year for January. Okay. So from here, I want to just emphasize that we have some really great resources over the next couple of weeks to still prepare you to complete a competitive application. So I encourage you to check out our events page. We have some really great upcoming events. For the spring, we're still populating that website. So please know that we have some really great more events coming up. We've put a couple of save the dates to put on your radar that are still really great ways to engage with our community. But more dates will be definitely populated in the coming weeks as we finalize what that looks like for the spring, but we're very excited. So please keep that in the back of your mind. I think what is important for this conversation and an event that I would love to highlight is that as we go into the winter holidays, we recognize that you might have some more questions, and questions pop up as you go and take the time to sit down and really submit it over the next couple of weeks. So we do have a round 2 application Q&A event that is going to come up on, I believe it's Thursday or Friday. It's going to be January 3rd. So it's going to be a informal webinar where you can come in and ask any application specific questions with our team before that January 6th deadline. So if there's something that comes up over the next couple of weeks and you rather just chat it through or just save it, or of course our team's going to be available over email or our Unibuddy link, but it's also just another opportunity to engage with our admissions team for some nuances of the application if you have any trouble that you just want to chat through. So keep that on your mind and please sign up for that. That's a really great way, like I said, to answer any last minute questions or concerns before that Monday deadline. So really great and helpful and highly encourage you to join that if you can. We also have our Unibuddy chat. So up here on the top left block, you're more than welcome to chat with any one of our admissions advisors, ask them questions about the application components, ask us about the program and the really great opportunities here at Georgetown within your MBA. And we do really love to share more links to our student ambassadors. So please know, I just want to make one little caveat, is that our student ambassadors are actually undergoing their leadership transition period. So they're also in the middle of finals. So please give them a little bit of grace if they are a little bit slower to respond to questions. We are also going to make sure that we have our new student ambassadors up in January. So if you've had some really wonderful connections with some of our student ambassadors over the past couple of months, know that there's actually going to be a leadership transition, and some more phenomenal first and second years are going to be joining our team come January. So another really great way to see if there's any more students based on different backgrounds or different clubs that they're involved in different industries that might align with your interests, and to keep chat. So there's always great ways to stay connected with the Georgetown McDonough community. But just know that some really great, leadership transitions are just naturally happening in January. Okay, so I've talked a lot. I just want to go through the Q&A box because I recognize we're coming up a little bit close on time, to make sure I've addressed all the major questions. Again, feel free to reach out to an admissions advisor or save and register that date for that round 2 Q&A, and we'll definitely be happy to help more questions and concerns. Okay, so it looks like wonderful. We've had some really great questions that we've addressed about the test waiver. Okay, there is one question that I don't know if I necessarily addressed about the test waiver, but if you are a student that has, as a full-time student, been deemed approved for the test waiver, or if you're a flex student that has self-assessed that you've met the certain criteria in a lot of different areas, and that you're able to prove your quantitative readiness in other capacities, it is not reviewed detrimentally on merit-based scholarship considerations if you have been approved and met that criteria for the test waiver. It is simply giving you the opportunity to show your quantitative readiness in a way that is more accessible to either your career background or your personal life. So that does not detrimentally hinder you from merit-based scholarship. So merit-based scholarship are all of our applicants that have been slated for admitted will be reviewed for consideration of merit-based scholarship. And so that is nice to know as well. Okay, I think we answered a lot. Okay. Okay, so one more thing as I wrap up. I think we've gotten all the really great questions underway about the nuances of the application components and preparing you. Thank you so much for joining. I really, again, appreciate the hard work that it takes to preparing a complete and competitive application, and two, fitting time in during this busy time of year for joining me. So as an attendee of this event, please keep an eye out on your email, and you will receive an email with a survey. At the end of that survey, you will receive instructions and and your unique application fee reduction code for attending this event. So we are on top of making sure that these get out as soon as possible. So just give us a 1 or 2 business days, but it should be coming to your email that you use to sign up for this event. An event recording will be available. So reach out to our team if you would like a recording of this event. And we're definitely here to help you in many different ways through these different resources to help you answer any questions over the next couple of weeks, because I recognize that is the final push. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day or your evening. I hope it's a good, productive part of your week, and that it wraps up nicely and smoothly. But thank you again so much for joining. It's been a pleasure getting to answer all these really thoughtful questions, and I hope to see you over the next couple of weeks and months as you proceed in your MBA journey. Okay, I hope everyone takes care and have a good rest of your day.